Welcome to another video by me, Rick Miracle, number 54 of a series, Freemasonry and Satanism. And we're going to continue with the UFO Evidence manual book, almost 200 pages, published by NICAP, the National Investigation Committee on Aerial Phenomena. And the more I study this and other material, the more I am, and this is a guy who's read a couple hundred books, including magazines and 1,000 videos, but the more I dwell into this, the more amazed I am. It's unbelievable material, and apparently there has been an unbelievable attempt to keep the information out of the public eye. For example, in reviewing John Kennedy, President, and his assassination in 1963, and the so-called, if you can believe it, July 20, 1969, when Apollo 11 Commander Neil Armstrong stepped off the lunar module's ladder and onto the moon's surface. What's odd about that is Neil Armstrong has evaded public appearances, scrutiny. Well, he won't talk about the moon thing. There's just some interesting videos out there talking about mind control, programming, Mitchell, who went to the moon, and some of the other people. There's just a lot of information out there that leads to some suspicious activity and a lot of questions that are not being asked. So anyways, in this material here, it clearly says that you have to remember these dates when I'm reviewing the UFO Evidence book. But from John Kennedy, after military service as a commander of the motor torpedo boats, the PT-109 and the PT-59 during World War II, in the South Pacific, Kennedy represented Massachusetts' 11th Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives from 1947 to 1953 as a Democrat. So House of Representatives. Then he served in the U.S. Senate from 53 to 60. So, you know, you're talking 47, 57, 6. So you're talking quite a few years, 14 years before he became president. And so he was president in 61, and he was killed in 63. And they went to the moon, they say, in July 20, 1969. The dates are important, because what did Kennedy know? What did everybody across the United States and the world know? That somehow they kept it out of the public eye. And they went through a lot of work keeping it out of the public eye. So let's get on with the book. This particular part, have UFOs been seen in other countries? The UFO Evidence, published 1964, a group of people with impeccable, unquestionable qualifications and education and credibility. There's no who these people are: admirals, generals, professors, meteorologists, astronomers. Anyways. So they put this material together, put their names on the line, their lives on the line, because they went up against the Air Force, who was trying to debunk it. Under one program, Project Blue Book was a program to appease the public. In other words, you had a place to go to make a report, and they promised you they would investigate, so as a citizen you felt you did your patriotic duty. Project Grudge was to investigate the UFO sightings and come up with a explanation that you would feed to the public. For example, if an airline pilot saw a cigar-shaped ship pull up along his airliner and hover with people looking out of the windows, that was the pilot and the co-pilot and many of the people on the plane's report, Project Grudge would say that it was a reflection off of the lake below of the so-called clubhouse windows. So they were making obvious explanations to feed to the public to ridicule the whole subject. Time after time, year after year. And in the Air Force manual, protocols, it was one of the laws or rules was that it was illegal to talk about the UFO situation to anybody. And so there's court-martial, losing your pension, death even was threatened. So a lot of pilots and a lot of military people back then, when you tried to talk to them, they had reason to shut up. So a lot of people go, how could they keep it all hidden? Well, the powers that be own all the newspapers, radio stations, TVs. And of course, to make mock the subject, we got the TV cartoon, The Jetsons. And I like to remind people that during Project Paperclip, they brought over all those German scientists after World War II. Russia went into Germany and grabbed as many scientists as they could. And apparently the UK and Australia and France, everybody was trying to grab those scientists. What did they know that nobody else in the world knew? And in the meantime, they were making a TV show called Hogan's Heroes, mocking the Germans. They use the same modus operandi all the time. They feed the public a comedy line or a silly line or a ridicule line, like the German Schultz and Klink being so stupid, when in the meantime, those German scientists like von Braun were the smartest scientists on the planet. Anyways, have UFOs been seen in other countries? The surprising misconception that UFOs are exclusively a native phenomenon of the United States is completely refuted in the Foreign Reports Section X. Part of the reason for this erroneous belief is the lack of information on foreign sightings reported by newswire representatives abroad. Well, why not? They were told to censor the news. They wouldn't keep their job if they didn't censor the news. In 1962, for instance, a major concentration of sightings occurred in Argentina, beginning in May and lasting almost all year. So 1962, a year before Kennedy was killed. And it was a massive sightings in Argentina. A rather well-to-do country. Do you think Kennedy would not have known about that? The CIA, the NSA, National Security Agency, was created out of the UFO fear that the military had. A few of the May sightings were reported briefly in the New York Times in Argentina. June 3, 1962, from a Router's Dispatch. So it's in the New York Times. You don't think Kennedy and his family and all his advisors didn't know this? But in a manner implying that the sightings lasted only one day. In general, U.S. news coverage of these sightings was practically non-existent. Intentionally non-existent, I might add. At 11:20, March 29, 1952, an Air Force pilot was flying at T-6 north of Sawa, Japan. It was a bright, cloudless day. Lieutenant Brigham was in a T-6 target plane in a practice intercept mission with a flight of 2 F-84s pursuing him. So 1952, I think Kennedy was still a representative in Massachusetts. I wonder what committees he was on. Because he started in the Senate in 47 to 53, he was in the House of Representatives. So he would have known about this sighting in Japan. Brigham noticed a flash of sunlight behind it. And saw a small, shiny, disc-shaped object gaining on the interceptor, the target plane. The UFO curved towards the F-84, decelerating rapidly to the Thunder jet's airspeed. So the UFO slowed down to 150 to 160 miles per hour, flipping up on edge in a 90-degree bank. Then it fluttered along close to the interceptor's fuselage between the two aircraft. So the UFO went between the two aircraft for 2 or 3 seconds and pulled away around the starboard wing, flipping once apparently as it hit the slipstream. So the turbulent air behind the jet caused the UFO to wobble. Finally, the object passed the F-84, crossed in front, pulled up abruptly, accelerated, and shot out of sight in a near vertical climb. Lieutenant Brigham estimated that the UFO at its closest point was 30 to 50 feet away from the plane. It was round, shiny as a polished coronium, and seemed to be about 8 inches in diameter. Throughout the observation, the disc rocked back and forth in 40-degree banks at about 1-second intervals. Lieutenant Brigham saw no exhaust or protrusions, but reported a ripple in the apparent metal skin around the edge of the disc. June 30, 1954, south of Goose Bay, Labrador, a British Overseas Airways airliner was paced by a large parent object and about 6 satellite objects. So there's a lot of cases in these sightings of large parent objects and small flying saucers, like an aircraft carrier and jets taking off of an aircraft carrier and landing back on the aircraft carrier. These parent flying saucers are round spheres, discs, that were huge, would have small flying saucers leave them and return to them. Again, this is unimpeachable people who did this book, in my opinion. And as you'll see, it should be convincing to you the more I go on here. Ulsa, Norway, 2 UFOs operating in tandem were observed and filmed under especially favorable conditions. About 50 people in the 3 aircraft saw 2 enormous silvery discs swoop down from the clouds 15 to 20 miles away, estimate based on the fact the UFOs were in the sunlight. The objects sped along the horizon, keeping an exact distance from each other, one slightly behind and above the other, both with forward edge tilted down. The observers detected apparent rotation as the UFOs leveled off and disappeared into the distance after about 30 seconds. The chief cameraman of the expedition, John Burnoff, managed to expose about 10 seconds of movie film which showed the UFOs. Now remember, this is the National Investigation Committee on Aerial Phenomena, and if you read video number 1, you know we have Presbyterian clergymen Colonel Byron, Air Force retired. Major Mr. Hartraff, President, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association. I could go on reading here. Robert Emerson, Colonel, U.S. Air Force, research chemist. Some very credible people that work for, directors of the UFO Investigation Committee, NICAP. Another unexplainable disk was observed, tracked on radar, and chased by 2 U.S. Air Force jet pilots somewhere in the Far East. You know, I do realize these videos I do may not be the most entertaining, but the material's off the chart, intellectually speaking. The stuff people don't know. So I'll take a break from this and talk about something else for a second. We have done videos on 2 books, and I keep coming back to these because I think they're so important. If you can get them used online cheap, they might be worth some serious money some days. The Gold of the Gods, first published in Great Britain, 1973, by G.P. Putnam and Sons. See the publisher there? That's important because I noticed the Putnam Publishing Company is in a lot of this stuff. Anyways, Eric von Daniken. And in the cave in Ecuador, to keep the story short here, these figures here were solid gold like a sheet, almost like aluminum foil but a little thicker, 3 feet tall, and the symbols, solid gold. Ecuador, in a cave. Father Carlo Crispi, who collects and guards an incredible treasure of gold and silver objects in the back patio of the Church of Maria Auxilia at Cunasca, Ecuador. That would be this guy. Van Daniken went down and met him. Anyway, some of the other gold plates were this one. Notice these creatures. Notice the top of the pyramid. There's a face on the top of the pyramid, and it looks like wings on the top of the pyramid. And then you got snakes and these guys. Solid gold. Pyramid. Here's another pyramid. See the capstone? It's a round circle with rays on it. This is in Ecuador, solid gold. Get this book. So, as many people know, on the US dollar bill is the pyramid with the rays behind the eye and the triangle. The rest of the pyramid sitting on top. Thousands, if not longer year old pyramid, rays on top. And notice these symbols on this thing. Solid gold. Down there in Ecuador. Here's the guy that was on the cover. Got a couple snakes there. face with the star-shaped thing behind it? His face. Look at the face on the top of the pyramid. And these other guys' faces, they look like grays, the aliens. And then, of course, there's another plate here. So, and here's some of the symbols. We've looked at this before. So, the archaeologists call this strange being from Tulum, Mexico, a bee god. The hideous creature with 2 bombs is classified as a bee god. I've been to Tulum in the Yucatan, but these are some of the symbols down in Tulum, and you can see it's almost like it's a man inside a spacecraft. And this guy's got bombs or something in his. So, you know, if you want to have a really good read and have something to show your friends, go get this book. Used books like Abe used books. There's a couple of them. Just type used books on the internet search engine, and you know you might get this for $5. Color pictures and all. You say, Rick, what's that got to do with, say, like UFO evidence, Kennedy being a representative and then a senator and then president and killed, going to the moon? And just to top it off, the Chronicle of Ankakor. We went over this. Carl Brugger went down to South America. Wound up visiting with the like I said, Carl Brugger went down to South America and visited with the natives. The flag of Ankakor. See the wavy lines, the water, and the sun rising? It's funny, I thought of this. The Obama thing with the wavy lines and the sun rising, the symbol. You notice a lot of similarities when you start investigating this stuff. So anyways, call The Return of the Gods in this book. Look at the symbols there. I'll have to compare these symbols with the ones that Van Daniken. So the Mayan calendar begins in 3113 BC, so 5,000 plus years ago, and ends on December 24th, 2011. The period of the Germanic migration, 375, is antiquity, beginning with the rise of the high civilizations on the river oasis of the lower Nile. So they talk about these beings from outer space returning to Earth during certain celestial events or cataclysmic events on Earth. But in one of the things I noticed, like Machu Picchu, notice these buildings. There's no doubt in my mind, if you look at them, they were designed to have roofs on them. Probably had wooden roofs. I'm looking at the pictures here, and I can see that that building would have had a roof on it. So the construction of these people, that would have been a modern town on the top of the mountains. And when Carl Brugger went there, he talks about the Germans coming over here in the beginning of the Venezuela area, the river. What's the big river there in the Amazon River? The brain slips me sometimes. And 2,000 Germans during World War II went all the way over to here and in here and lived with the natives in Kakor in underground cities as technologically advanced as these in the Ecuador, northern Peru, western Venezuela, northwestern corner of Brazil. Thousands of years ago, these modern cities existed. So it all seems to tie in together with the symbol on the dollar bill, for example. The people running our country fleecing the people, causing wars, basically causing chaos and mayhem with the people of the world. Are these behind the scenes people with knowledge of the aliens, possibly related to them, possibly many of them probably living here on Earth? Now, I tie everything together. And Kennedy's death, and a couple other issues we'll get into. But in the meantime, let's get back to this UFO evidence under the title, Have UFOs Been Seen in Other Countries? Moving on, and I'm only reading my highlighted portions, as you know. I'm only up to page 7 on this book of 200 pages, so I'm not going to do this whole book. You can go, I'll just take you through it a little bit, but you can go online and let me know. Maybe I could make a copy and send you this. The pilot closed in at over 700 miles per hour at 8 miles range. A round object became visible exactly where the radar showed it. The apparent size was very large. The pilot described it as the size of a lead pencil eraser if placed against a wide screen. Using figures supplied by North American Aviation, the diameter of the UFO was computed to be about 350 feet. The pilot got a radar lock-on, automatically guiding his plane toward the UFO. As he continued to close in, his radar was suddenly jammed by a strong interference. Using anti-jam procedures, the pilot switched frequencies. For 10 seconds, this eliminated the mysterious interference pulses. Then they began again. So it seems like the UFO aircraft had electronics on board and could jam the pilot's radar tracking equipment. It had the appearance of being circular on the bottom. The color of the UFO was described as golden tan with no reflection from the sun. After the UFO began turning, the pilot's radar indicated that the object was moving up and away from 1,500 to 1,800 knots at 17 to 2,000 miles per hour. That's some technology. I hate to say it, but that's some technology that built these cities on the top of the Andes Mountains. And just picture that whole village with nice little roofs on it and people and everything. 6,000, 8,000, 10,000 years ago. What do the powers that be, the Vatican, the Zionists, the banksters, the Illuminati, the politicians, the ones who are practicing Satanism, the Bohemian Grove, what is it they know? And how does all that stuff tie in with this? I don't think there's two separate realities. I don't think there's a reality of aliens flying around and a reality of our politicians and a lot of leaders. That if you go on the internet and read books, you'll know that child abduction is pretty prevalent around the country, the world. Sexual abuse of children and satanic rituals, and then they sacrifice the child, kill the child, afterwards, and something to appease some satanic Luciferian god. And I just don't see it as two separate realities. Because even when I was down maybe a dozen times in the Yucatan, Mexico, Cancun, La Playa, Cozumel, Tulum, the ruins, you know, I would ask the guide at Tulum about the sacrificing of people that so-called the Mayans did back then. And they were greatly embarrassed and didn't want to talk about the subject. They said, no, there's no longer any of that going on. But in the world, over in Europe, there are common law trials going on, and the police in Germany and elsewhere are getting involved because apparently there are huge secret cabals, groups of people involved in abducting children, sexual ritual abuse, and sacrificing them. So there is this interface between this other dimension and this dimension where I guess so-called that energy that they do when they do that killing of the children and sexual rituals and creating huge amounts of fear appears to be some kind of energy that the interdimensional beings want or need, maybe to open portals they can come and go in this dimension. I don't know. But it's all verifiable, everything I just said. Unless everybody on the planet and thousands of books and videos and everybody's just lying. Press releases. And we know a lot about the sexual abuse and sacrificing. Go look at the Alex Jones Bohemian Grove where they have the huge owl god. Owl god, Moloch. Huge thing, like a building, with a big hole in the bottom of the belly of the owl. It's demon god Moloch. And then a lot of the CEOs and your political leaders are there at the Bohemian Grove, a gigantic forest. And they have chants and a satanic ritual. They dress naked in long robes, ship in gay men. They do not allow women. So this is all detailed by witnesses or people who worked inside the grove over the years. And they even have brochures and a tourist attraction with all this material in it. You can go look it up. Look up Bohemian Grove images on Yahoo. But anyways, so then they toss a baby into the fire. So again, they're having satanic rituals. They're dressing up in long robes naked. They're having gay men shipped in for satanic ritual sex. They're killing a child under a giant owl. And like before, if you look on a dollar bill, right here, you will see a little owl sitting on that one. Right there. You can see it. Get your own dollar bill and look at it. So again, we put the evidence together. Why are they having the giant owl on the dollar bill? Why are they having the giant owl on a lot of the hieroglyphics in the Egyptian pyramids and stones, you know? So anyways, back to the alien thing. Okay, he would doubt the possibility of such an occurrence if he hadn't actually happened to him. So he would doubt it that it's possible if it hadn't happened to him. This is Pilot Lieutenant X. The above sample cases contain examples of most of the recurring features of reported UFOs. Reports from competent observers such as scientists and pilots, flight characteristics such as disc wobbling on its axis, maneuvering patterns such as hovering and terrific acceleration, physical evidence such as radar trackings and the electromagnetic effects. Your headlights and if a UFO came near your car, it would cause your car to die, the engine to stop, and your lights to go off. There's plenty of these cases reported. Typically, the majority of reports described disc-shaped or elliptical objects. Anyways, moving on here. Couldn't they be U.S. or Soviet secret devices? That's another topic here. The arguments against secret device theory then are: test devices of one nation would not be observed worldwide. So if it was just the Russians with these flying saucers, why would they be in Brazil and Peru and New Guinea and South Africa and Canada? And if they have some kind of secret, why would they be running around showing it off? If secret devices were operational in the scope necessary to account for UFO reports, the technology implied would cause all current jets and rockets to be completely outmodeled. So if they have all that technology, why are they hiding it and keeping us in the dark ages and causing all kinds of economic destruction in the world, causing 9/11, all the Middle East turmoil? There seems to be something nefarious going on across the planet. And you have to know that the people who killed Kennedy and the people who put the owl on the $1 bill and the people who put the pyramid and the eye on the dollar bill. I don't have to show you that book by Van Daniken from Ecuador with the eye and the thing. This makes you wonder, what's the truth? And that's what my videos are all about, finding out the truth. And I don't need to continue to remind people, but may as well, that these people here, this is 1962, I've got these from 29, 35, 42, 60, 75. The New Age is the magazine published by the Freemasons. Now remember, we're talking about a pyramid on the dollar bill and an owl. Now look at this, look at these people. Look at the triangle. The buildings, the lodges. The owl, I mean the eagle with two heads, the phoenix rising. That's what the owl with or eagle with two heads is the phoenix rising. And if you think that's strange, look at lodges all over the world. All that power and money all over the world. There was something I misspoke on one of these before, and I said it's John J. Kennedy was a 33-degree Mason. See there? Well, apparently on my there was a John J. Kennedy, New York State Treasurer, who ran into some banking problems. Who would have figured that out? And I think he committed suicide. But John Kennedy is John F. Kennedy, Francis. So when I misspoke on a previous video, I said I thought that might have been. Now it may be the John F., but maybe they made a mistake. The Masonic institution, like I said here, look at the G with the sun's rays up here. Look at the eye with the sun's rays on the top of the thing here. So what else was going on back then? The Club of Rome, another Masonic organization, they were starting to say there's too many people on the planet. So Kennedy gets killed. UFO sightings are off the chart. The government forms the NSA, National Security Agency, that keeps everything from the public. Actually, the public is enemy number one now, because anybody who finds out or tells all is threatened or killed. So it's them against us now. And then they got the population bomb by Paul Ehrlich, which is another depopulation guy down here. In the meantime, I have to reach down on the floor to grab my books. Sorry. Back then, when, as far as when Kennedy was in the House of Representatives, Kennedy would have known about this. The government went on a feeding frenzy for money to start building underground cities all over the United States and set up a separate government under the United States with tunnel systems everywhere. Unbelievable what's underground. From New York probably to California is an underground train system. Here's some of the equipment that does the tunnel digging. Miles per day. RAND Corporation, one of the major government contractors. Jet tunneler here. So RAND Corporation and a bunch of other things. Richard Sonder, get this book. And then from 83 to 84, football-size aircraft all over Connecticut, upper New York, western Massachusetts. Get the book, I read all this. No one knows for sure, I'm reading on the back here, what is going on. But thousands of ordinary people, from housewives to aviation engineers, from children to professional business people, have reported seeing a UFO in New York State's magnificent Hudson Valley. For 2 years, people you'd be driving along the interstate, 84 or whatever, and everybody's pulled over, gawking up and pointing up, so you pull over, and there's these football field aircraft, triangular shaped, and sometimes more than one. There's one case in here where the guy's looking at it. There's many cases where it seems like they have telepathy. But the guy's watching it, and it's going away. And the guy thinks, geez, don't go away, I want to see more of you. And the big thing turns around and starts coming back. And of course that freaks him out, you know. Just saying. You got things like Witness to Roswell. I read this book. If you read it, it certainly doesn't seem like it's all fake. Taking billy clubs and threatening children to shut up. Don't tell what they saw. Bribing people in there, getting a brand new car from the government to shut up. Officers changing their story from a bag full of debris that unfolds when you crinkle it to saying that it's a weather balloon. Perhaps the most, page 6, the most damaging to the secret device theory is that UFOs apparently have been observed for a very long time. German technology at the end of World War II was impressive, and this has caused advocates of this theory to attribute UFOs to captured German scientists and engineers working secretly in the US or Russia. So if the Germans were smarter than anybody in the world, and their scientists brought the United States to the world's power that it is today, why were they making a TV show like Hogan's Heroes, making them out to be dopes, idiots, fools, bunglers? It's mind control, people. They want you to be stupid and believe the stuff they feed you. The press releases in the newspapers, it's lies. It's in there, it was in the newspaper yesterday, that Al-Qaeda and ISIS are tweeting, if you know what tweeting is, and other social media, the people in Ferguson to join up with ISIS and Al-Qaeda and the Muslim thing, and they would come over here and we would slaughter all the Christians and whiteys. Anybody believes that's true is just foolish, is just stupid, is beyond, you know, it's a propaganda. It's to incite more trouble, more chaos. That's what apparently these satanic aliens that are kidnapping children and sexually abusing them and sacrificing children, tying all this together, the ancient Mayans sacrificing people. Over in the ancient Rome, we're throwing people in the pit with the lion, having a huge event, celebration, and pitting men and men with swords and stabbing each other. Does anybody believe that this is something that should be attributed to an intellectual society? Or is there a slight hinge of insanity involved? A sickness? Explorer Nicholas Roche, on an expedition to the Himalayas mountains, August 5, 1926, and others in his caravan saw a shiny oval disc object. So they're in the Himalayas out there in western China, eastern India. A lot of property there in dispute between the Indians and the Chinese. They saw a shiny oval-shaped object. While watching a soaring eagle, they noticed the object far above, moving south at high speed, and observing it through binoculars. The UFO then made a turn to the southwest and moved out of sight in the distance. So here's one man's report right here, how they made the reports. And they sign it, and they draw pictures, and they tell the story. So, to me, there's very little possibility that this is all faked. There's too many reports. Well-documented material by qualified individuals, beyond qualified. So with that said, let me get my books out here for a second. Well, I do have my work cut out for me, and I make these videos so you can get the gist of the argument a lot quicker than my previous 10 years of research. I just don't feel that people have 10 years to research this. I think the clock is ticking, and things are going to happen at a faster pace. But anyway, so I collect old books, as we know. That's what these are, book reviews, Satanism and Freemasonry and Satanism. And again, you say, why Freemasonry and Satanism? Well, it is the Freemason, without a doubt. You talk about the Illuminati, which basically the Illuminati, just so people can get a handle on what they are, it's just a religion. It's like being a Christian or a Presbyterian or Protestant. Jewish, Hindu, Buddha, all the religions. The Zionism is a religion, not Zionism, but Illuminati. I'll get to Zionism next. Where if you look at Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma and other Illuminati material, even by Rabbi Marvin Adelman, a book, we did a couple reviews on his books, it's a Luciferic, worshiping Lucifer, Satan, or as they call him, Ra, R-A. We've seen this on Stargate, the TV show, Ra or whatever. Osiris, ISIS, the threat we have now threatening the world, that the so-called group. Remember Blackwater? The paid-for soldiers, the U.S. George Bush's presidency, they were having civilian companies be half the force of military soldiers over there, civilian soldiers, Blackwater. And they got in a lot of trouble. But apparently if you go online and look up ISIS in the USA, you'll see they're just a sister corporation or a similar corporation to Blackwater. And they're the ones that are called ISIS over there, I believe. And they recruit a lot of Arabs who are really probably not religious at all, just are greedy and want the money. 25 grand and you can go out and behead a bunch of people. Guess that's easy money to earn. So, Freemasonry and Satanism, we know that these people control everything. to all combine, it's called the Illuminati, and that's a Luciferic religion. The Zionism religion also is, just like all religions, you know, you can get people who are seriously Christian, people who say they're Christian but don't go to church, and people who were born of Christian parents and really don't care and believe in God or anything. Well, the same thing with the Jews. You got Orthodox Jewish people who are completely opposed to the Zionism program. Look on Zionism images on the internet and see the Yahoo image site, and you'll see many Jews with their beards and all their black uniforms and everything, posters and picketing and speaking up. Again, never making the news like sky spraying or UFO sightings, but they're fighting fervently against this Zionism program because they're good, Orthodox, God-believing, Ten Commandment type of Jewish people. And then, of course, you have the other ones who said, heck no with the Ten Commandments. We are the Reformed Jews, and we have switched sides to Lucifer, and we can do whatever we want. And if you invite somebody over to have sex with your wife, your neighbor, and watch him have sex with your wife, according to Rabbi Marvin Antleman, not me, to eliminate the opaque, read the book, Volume 1 or Volume 2. They're in my previous videos. But if you watch your neighbor with the Reformed Jewish people, who switched from God to Lucifer's team, the fallen angels, the cast out angels, then you would become a genius and rich to involve yourself in all that decadent sexual activity, which, as we know out of Hollywood, all the Hollywood stars, Beyonce, Miley Cyrus, Kate Perry, Lady Gaga, and many others, male and female, have even said on some of the TV programming talk shows where they confess and break out into tears, even Michael Jackson, that they have signed a pact with the Luciferian Hollywood Zionist Reformed Jewry people. So there are people who have went with God, and there are people who went with Lucifer. And it makes you wonder, what does that have to do with the aliens? Again, I do not believe there are two separate realities. This is all one reality, including the economic destruction in the United States. And turning over most of the control and superseding the Constitution is the United Nations treaties that are being made with the USA. And most of the politicians have sold us out and work for the Zionism Illuminati parties. That's a lot of speaking. Anyways, here's a book on UFOs. I haven't read this one yet. Like I said, I believe everything's tied together. This one was published in 1955. Signed K. Lucas. Who wrote this book? Leonard Cramp. And here's some interesting pictures. Look at the cigar shaped craft on the top. And then you got your metal saucer types. And the cigar would have all these little ones here coming and going from it. So I look forward to reading these books I have so many of. So what, do these aliens, you know, do they have souls? Have they made deals with the devil? There's lots of interesting questions a person can ask. Just looking to see if there's any more pictures in this book. Flying saucers have landed. This remarkable book has sold over 65,000 copies in America in its first year of publication, 1955. Nor is it this surprising, for the key part of this book is the first widely accepted story of a meeting of a man from this planet with a man from another planet who has come here by spaceship. Here's another book I got. Extraterrestrials Among Us. Again, remember Van Daniken's pictures there, these little creatures down by the pyramid on those gold plates? kind of look like those guys. Any pictures in here? Yep, there is. Now that looks kind of satanic-y, witchcrafty. The way I make those words, satanic-y, witchcrafty. One type of hand has 4 fingers, no thumb. 2 fingers appear longer than the others, slightly webbing between fingers, frequently observed. Arms are long and thin. Skin is lizard-like. That's what it says there. So like I said, I got plenty of reading to do if I'm ever going to get done with this George Andrews book. Exopolitics, Politics, Government, and the Law of the Universe, Alfred Weber. I suggest you go online and see Alfred Weber's videos. I watched one of his videos this morning. See the flying saucer? Exopolitics. And anyways, Alfred Weber, on one of the videos I watched this morning, apparently there's something called common law, and there's a bunch of people from the public arena, major citizens of the world, making charges against many people over in Europe, the UK, and other countries for abducting children, sexually abusing them, and then thereafter sacrificing them. Remember, this is Alfred Weber. Go check his videos on the internet. Remember, we're tying, again, Freemasonry and Satanism together. So here is Alfred Weber discussing the exopolitics, trying to get the government to admit flying saucers are real, having hearings before Congress. We discussed that with this guy who, serious disclosure, Dr. Stephen Greer, who is having seances or incantations in the desert to try to bring forth the aliens to communication. Does that sound like witchcraft to you? And this is the guy that's a part of the serious disclosure. He's got videos all over YouTube. So Albert Weber, they had a big case. They've been raiding this one location and came out of there with like 35 children. And apparently when they kidnap children, the children are usually sexually abused and sacrificed within 48 hours, 2 days. So they just were fortuitous. They got very lucky to be there at that time and rescue those 34, 35 kids. Because within 2 days they would have been ritually, sexually abused and then sacrificed. So it just makes you wonder. We know we have spirits in our body. What technology, what satanic, evil, sadistic, insane purpose is it to frighten these kids with the sexual abuse or whatever energy that they can create and then sacrifice them? What beast are they feeding? Why in the Bohemian Grove do they have the gigantic owl? And why is there that owl on the top of that one on the dollar bill? Right there, you can see the little owl. With a magnifying glass, you'll see it's an owl. Why the pyramid, the eye? It's on the same stuff that's down there in Ecuador in the caves and the caverns, involving UFOs that came to help the people build those underground facilities and escape the great cataclysmic event 7,000 years ago, the Great Flood. And apparently 7,000 years ago, prior to that, another great earth upheaval. So anyways, just a couple things about Alfred Weber in this book. I haven't read it. Just thought I'd show you some of my collection. Alright. Some of the topics are Turning the Universe Upside Down, Universal Politics, A Decade of Contact, The Infancy of Exopolitics. Spiritual and Material Reality. See, that's how you tie the material with the spiritual. It's in all these books. The Information War and the Alien Abductions. So we know that the aliens, according to many of the other books, like this guy's book, Whitley Strieber. Again, there's your familiar little gray there. And apparently they abduct people and then they have them laying on a table and impregnate them. Male or female, the male they extract the sperm, and the female they put the sperm in them from the aliens, I guess, or some modified combined DNA of the alien and human. And then they take the lady back home, and then later on when they abduct her again and extract the baby, they send her back home, and somehow they're able to erase people's memories. And then years later they abduct them again and show them their child, and it looks like a half alien, half human. But as any mother would be, she so much loves her child, as gruesome as they may look. I read the other one of Whitley's book. I got to read this one. Dominion, I think. So here in Exopolitics with Alfred Weber, with the video I watched this morning about the trials going on and the arrests going on over in Europe for all the huge amounts of third world country children being abducted, who are supposedly sexually abused and killed within 48 hours and sacrificed. Strange. In 2014. Understanding universal organizations, the end of permanent welfare, reversing the quarantine. They say that Earth is quarantined for thousands of years from the rest of the galactic societies, universal societies. The end of terrestrial politics. So has everything been going on in our world been these aliens behind the scenes causing all the murder and mayhem? Get the book, read it. Maybe you'll read it before I do. Got another one here. Gonna love this. The gods have landed. Looks like they've abducted that lady there. Look at her stomach. Here's the baby. So they're going to have a breed like this and this. Is that what's really going on? If that's not gruesome, I don't know what is. Guess you could tell I'm not a big fan of the aliens. The gods have landed. What's this here? A scale model of the embassy that the Elohim visitors from other worlds requested Reel to build. So apparently the aliens got a hold of this guy Reel and said, build these embassies so when we meet with you. Once established, the Elohim intend to meet with celestial, politic, and scientific leaders and give Earth the benefit of their wisdom and their technology. And if you believe that, I've got some fantastic property for you in the Everglades, Florida for sale. La Meditation Sensual. So remember, all this is about sex. Pleiadians, we talked about that. There's a lot of sexual, some kind of ritual thing that they believe you should do. Anyways, the index of this book, the present anthology is a comprehensive account of the religious dimension of the UFO flying saucer experience. Chapters ranging from the analysis of the religious meetings attached to this phenomenon by the larger society to surveys of specific movements that claim inspiration from space brothers and other extraterrestrial sources. Although the wealth of existing sociological, psychological, and anthropological Articles suggest that this is an important phenomenon. Few book-length studies exist. The Gods Have Landed fills this gap, providing readers with the ritually textured, interdisciplinary approach to the UFO religions. That's what it says here, religions. Well, the only religion I know that we need to watch out for is the satanic religion with that little owl on the dollar bill. So when you read these books, which I encourage you to do, you have to realize that the evil forces have written a lot of these books to sway you their way. Here's another one. UFO. Some of these I don't have the cover for. The case for the UFO. This is an interesting story I'm going to tell you right now. By M.K. Jessup. The Case for the UFO by M.K. Jessup. So, published in 1955. Let me just read you a little bit here about what he says. The preface by M.K. Jessup. The subject of UFOs in its present stage is like astronomy in that it is purely observational science in 1955. Now, let us remember, in 1955, where was Mr. Kennedy? He would have been House of Representatives from 47 to 53, and then after in the Senate from 53 to 60. So 7 years in the Senate. So in 55 he was a senator. Do you think he would have known about all this stuff? They all would have. It was hot potatoes back then. We saw the sightings here in my book. Therefore, it must be based on observation and not on experiment. Observation, in this case, consists of everything which can be found to have bearing on the subject. There are thousands of references to it in ancient literature. A lot of people know that. But the authors did not know that their references had any bearing, for the subject did not then exist. The writers were recording such things as met their senses solely through an honest effort to report inexplicable observational data. Some of my contemporaries have attempted to prove that all the phenomena are, in some way or other, illusionary, and that in any case they do not involve flight, wingless or otherwise mechanical propulsion, and intelligent direction. So this is M.K. Jessup. I consider their negative case unproven because there is an overwhelming mass of authentic evidence which can be cited as direct observation, indirect observation, and supporting evidence and indication. So I suppose if you see a gigantic sphere in the sky over a military base or an airport, and it shows up on the radar, would you believe your own senses looking at the radar and looking at the sky? There is one sphere of indirect evidence in the form of events of mystery. There is one sphere of indirect evidence in the form of events of mysterious nature which have never been explained. These things would be easily to explain were we to admit the limitations of our knowledge and the possibility of intelligence elsewhere in the universe operating spaceships, and quite possibly more than one kind of intelligence and more than one kind of spaceship. I remember when we did the Nikola Tesla book material, even as a child, he would have visions, dreams, and words come into his brain. Now, assuming there are these alien entities and they have plans for planet Earth, even biblically satanic plans for a new world order, and they had to turn the earth in a particular direction, change the reality we all perceive, then they certainly had the technology to put words and thoughts in people's minds. Just like the UFO spaceships in the Night Siege book we reviewed, where the man is looking at it and it's going away and he goes, I wish it would come back, and it comes back. So, and I believe we all have spirits. There's plenty of books written by nurses and doctors at the hospitals, where when people die, they see an apparition leave the body, like an energy, like you see on Star Trek series. And, you know, the soul energy or some kind of energy that possesses people's bodies. And demonic possession mentioned in the Bible. See, there is no two different realities. There is one, and they are interconnected. And that's an important key that we need to find to unlock the truth. What is the interconnection? The world is full of unexplained oddities. The legends of Atlantis and Mu have been favorite targets of the scoffers. They say there are no ghosts, no spirit, nothing falls from the sky but iron and stone meteorites. But for centuries the earth was believed to be flat, and there was no America. Heliocentric system of earth and planets, no fossil dinosaurs, yet we know these beliefs to have been wrong. With that in mind, let me give you a basic solar, planetary, sun lesson here. The sun and the earth do not sit there in space like a rock not moving. The sun is hurtling through space with a gigantic envelope around it. It's hurtling through space. Look at a picture of the galaxy. Big twirl thing. The Milky Way galaxy. So the sun moves around the galaxy. 26,000 years. The whole thing makes a one turn. And when it does go around the galaxy, it doesn't go in a straight line. It oscillates. So it's cruising along at thousands of miles an hour with a big envelope around it, carrying the planets and their moons around the planets. The whole solar system is cruising around the Milky Way. And not in a straight line, but oscillating. So every so many years, it goes through the center of the, let's say this is the galaxy, the Milky Way. And if it's oscillating, the sun would go above and below and above and below. Now I'm just saying, from my studies, every time it crosses the elliptic plane, does the polarity change, and is there anything to cause a cataclysmic event? So then it goes up 3,000 years or so and comes back 3,000, that would be 6,000 to 7,000, crosses the elliptic plane, then you have Noah's flood. Goes down 3,000 years, up 3,000 years, crosses the elliptic plane, and causes a sinking of Atlantis, the second sinking. Another 7,000 years causes the first cataclysmic event of Earth. And if you look at the map behind me, you can see that it looks like a big puzzle, and you can put the European continent and the South African continent and South America and North America all together. So when every time we have one of these crossings of the elliptic plane, is there some cataclysmic event? I'm just asking and making a plausible theory. It could be that when it goes to the top, something disastrous happens and it changes direction. It could be at these peak periods when the whole thing causes chaos, not crossing the elliptic plane. I don't know. But I've been doing some studying and reading, and in other books that I have read, we will review that topic and discussion by some people a lot smarter than me who have researched that stuff. And in that galaxy, with this big ball in the center and all the planets, you know, are there entities and forces living out there? Would they be from the other dimension, from the people who created humans, the God that created humans? And do they use Earth for farming or people for food or energy? Have we been deceived for thousands of years, murdered for thousands of years? Okay, reliable people have been seeing the phenomenon known as flying saucers for thousands of years or more. There are good reports as far back as 1500 BC and before. Thousands of people have seen some kind of navigatable contraptions in the sky, and some have sworn it under oath. I cannot agree with any astronomer who insists that all these things are mirages, planets, clouds, or illusions. The majority of the people are articulate enough to tell their stories, sincere enough to make depositions before notary publics. Even scientists concede that these folks saw something. I see nothing particularly odd in strange descriptions of phenomena and the like, which no other earthly counterpart, for which no frame of reference. This work is a serious attempt to bring order out of chaos. That would be Mr. Jessup's work. He wants to bring order out of chaos. Remember, George Bush said out of chaos will come the New World Order. So George Bush and his cronies, his son Georgie, and Obama and the puppet masters, they want to bring chaos to Earth so they can bring about the New World Order and crash the money, and nobody's going to buy anything or sell anything, which means you're not going to be able to eat or pay rent unless you probably take the biblical mark of the beast, which is a microchip. So everybody will be computer controlled and monitored like a slave society. So there does seem to be an evil force out there in our so-called universe, that the sun and the planets are traversing around and oscillating up and down through the elliptic center. This work is a serious attempt to bring order out of chaos and an attempt to put all the facts of this controversy into a basic stratum upon which to make an intelligent evaluation of the subject. M.K. Jessup, January 13, 1955. So anyways, just some of the topics here. If it waddles, UFOs are real, falling ice, falling stones, disappearing ships and crews, levitation, incredible decade, UFOs against the sun. They got Soho, the thing on the internet where you can look at the sun. And people have seen gigantic UFOs parked next to the sun. And even little static electricity going between the gigantic UFO and the sun. I guess it's a way they could probably recharge their ship or something. Anyways, he's got some illustrations in this book. And this isn't even the surprise I have for you here. So let's look at a few of his illustrations and move on. Meteor from an organic cloud, Stanford, England, 1877, the first year of the incredible decade. Whatever that's about. So I would get this book online at the used bookstore cheap, if you can. So he wrote this. I think Mr. Jessup here was a professor. So the title of the book was The Case for the UFO. So anyways, Mr. Jessup wrote that book. And all of a sudden he started receiving mysterious copies of his book back, marked up. The Allende letters and a Vero edition, The Case of the UFO. So he was getting letters about his book. And they had marked up his book. They were correcting him about his book. And you can see some of the sentences here. I'll read a couple. But this would be the corrections they made, and they would write over the words in his book. I guess they were the aliens trying to tell the professor he was one of the smartest people to figure this out. And they were making him they were correcting his material and sending it back to him. He didn't know what to think. The Allende letters in the Case for the UFOs, the Vero edition by Morris Jessup. On the evening of April 20, 1959, an astronomer committed suicide in Dade County Park, Florida. Inhaling automobile exhaust fumes, which he had introduced from the tailpipe through a hose into his station wagon, he died in the same academic obscurity in which he had lived, unheralded and almost unrecognized in his discipline. Ironically, the scientist's only popular recognition had come from lay people who had read his series of 4 books about unidentified flying objects. So M.K. Jessup committed suicide. Well, made it look like suicide. Morris Jessup's first book, The Case for USO, had tended to alienate him from his colleagues, though it came and went with relatively few sales. Its publishers sold it off to a second-hand bookstore at $1 each. Today it brings $25 to $140 per copy, if you can find one. Well, I've got one. It was paperback edition of the same year, published in 1955 by Bantam Books, that immersed Jessup in one of the most bizarre mysteries in UFO history. An annotated print of the paperwork was laboriously typed out in offset stencils and printed in a very small run by Garland, Texas Manufacturing Company, which produced the equipment for the military. Each page was run through a small office duplicator twice, once with black ink for regular text in the book and then again for the red ink, the later reproducing the mysterious annotations by 3 men who may have been gypsies, hoaxsters, or space people living among men. The spiral-bound 8x10 volume containing more than 2,000 pages became known as the annotated edition. So somebody made an 8x11 this side copy of his book, and they made all kinds of notes in it in red. The reprint quickly became legend. A few civilian enthusiasts claimed to have seen copies, and it was rumored that a few choice associates of Mr. Jessup possessed copies. Many people claimed it was simply never existed. Because you are now holding, me right here, a virtual exact facsimile of the annotated edition in your hands, it is most obvious that the book existed, that the big mystery still remains. Why did a government contractor go through so much trouble to reprint a book that had been rejected by the scientific community, and further to include mysterious letters to the author, and even more bizarre annotations? And with the mystery goes the suspicion that this book may have been printed by the manufacturer at the request of the military, which implies government interest in the weirdest aspects of flying saucer study. So a couple of annotations, I'll just read a few. You can try to track this down. Disappearing Ships and Crews, Part 3, History Speaks. There are 2 purposes to be served in discussing this disappearance of ships and crews. This would be in Mr. Jessup's book. First, we shall list enough of the available material to show that such phenomena have occurred, and second, we shall see what conclusions can be drawn and how it will serve our space thesis. That would have been Mr. Jessup. And then here's one of their notes. Yes, many, many times, more often than is recorded, Ulysses and crew believed suffered the same fate. Wanderings that were pure inventions. So Ulysses in history, his wanderings were pure inventions. Another thing here, then we are right back where we started with the little worked meteorite. If either or both of these shameless trinkets were indigenous to our planet, we must perforce accept a civilization with a knowledge of optics predating all present recorded history. And then the notes that somebody wrote, assuming they're aliens. Lens was a trucion, mirror silvering of crystal, rock, or force, made crystal unknown to Etrusians. It was crystal, and it was a lens. Crucians used them to make fine gold and silver earrings. Gold wire inlays also were used to make fire for the smiths. And then Jessup would have said, this lens is just as much in a small way a relic of the first wave of civilization, if not from space, as it is the Great Pyramid. And then the aliens wrote, which embodies more astronomy and mathematics than was possessed by those people to whom its construction is attributed. Actually, that was Jessup's, but what the aliens done, they had super highlighted it, emphasizing that particular sentence, which embodies more astronomy and mathematics than was possessed by the people to whom it was attributed. And then they go here, another Jessup sentence was hands, human hands in the Tertiary area. No, say the anthropologists, extraterrestrial hands, maybe on the exploded planet or blasted off this bedeviled old earth when Mu went up in cosmic glory. And it says here, hands with 3 fingers and thumbs was written in by the alien. So anyways, Jessup wrote the book. And then an edited edition of the book came back. This man hints as there being 2 distinct species or groups of similar species to be involved in his observations. Why does he persist in mere hinting so strongly? I believe that he knows for certain, but can do nothing. LMs are in for a surprise if he does do something. So he wrote the book, and then some other people, entities, whatever you want to do, corrected his book. So together, you get the story. There's another book I haven't read. UFOs and the Alien Agenda by Bob Larson, another popular fellow. The Mothman Prophecies, compelling and generally frightening. Who are the mysterious Mothmen invading America in unidentified flying objects? So they're invading the Earth, and they certainly look demonic to me. The starships of Ezekiel. Are the Van Daniken theories really true? Was Earth once visited by beings from another planet? A major NASA engineer reveals some astonishing facts. So not only was there Roswell, apparently there was a crash at Corona. Wow, look at this. This is cool when you collect old books. That's done by Stanton Friedman. Looks like his signature there. I buy these at used book sites. I've gotten some quite interesting books that way, with some interesting stuff inside the books. Drawings by Glenn Davis based on the sketches by his nurse friend on the day after she assisted 2 doctors in the preliminary examination of the alien bodies at Roswell. This is in Stanton's book here. That'd be an interesting read. And we got another one here by our friend here, Contact. Countdown for Transformation by Stephen M. Greer, MD. The guy I keep talking about that is holding puntas, they call it. Sanskrit, which is the writing over there in Egypt on the pyramids, Sanskrit. Sanskrit meditations, like prayers if you go to church, but the Sanskrit, an incantation, abracadabra type stuff. Whatever the words, but Stephen Greer wrote this thick book I have not read. And calling forth entities with a group of people, charging $50 a ticket. Limited people, amount of people can go. He wrote a big book. So there and again, even with his material, you're tying together the material and the spiritual. If they can go out there and start chanting and a bright orb or something's going to show up, or an alien ship. So anyways, getting back to where we started from, the UFO evidence. And here we have, I'm going to finish this up shortly right now, the page 9. You can see when they have reports, they draw these little pictures. Intelligent control. UFOs have shown all of these features: inquisitiveness and reaction to environment, powered flight, and formations in coordinated light. Inquisitiveness and reaction to environment. In case after case, UFOs strong singularly and in formation have paced or followed automobiles, trains, airplanes, and rockets. Often the UFOs have circled the device and taken evasive action when pursued. So I think you got the point. This is a very interesting book if you want to try to track it down. There's pictures inside. It's a technical book. It gives all the different types of descriptions. As you can see here, I'd like to be able to spend a week here and go over all this with you. I will read it all. They do have case after case after case and dates of sightings. So what I did to finish this up is I went on something you can go on. MUFON, which is a website on the internet. It's the current 2014 reporting place for UFO activities, and I'm sure there are a couple others. So what I did is I went on the last 20 sightings as of today, the Saturday, 29 November 2014. So anyways, so the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and it says here, and I did this last night, 11:29, I woke up and just went on the computer and said, what's the last 20 sightings of UFOs? So 11:29, Saybook saw strange lights, so I recorded the event in HD and have the footage. Baton Rouge, Louisiana. 11:29, flashing light went quickly across the sky. Tulsa, Oklahoma. 11:29, full white lights appeared in my backyard. 11:28, the day after Thanksgiving, green ball falling northwest, then changes direction, straight up, then changes direction to west. No pulsating. I thought it was a meteorite until it changed directions. That would have been Quartzsite, Arizona. Another one, 11:28, red to fire orange, object traveling north, turned slowly to the east, no sound was heard. Hudson, New York, where they had all the night siege, huge UFO sightings. Flash of bluish white, Bangor, Pennsylvania. Bright silver disc with round appendage on top, looked like a hat. Sounds like a flying saucer. Frenchtown, New Jersey. Flying object with lights going back and forth all directions. California. Trail of UFO in outer space, Indiana. Guess the guy had a telescope. Bright light stationary in the sky, orange in color. Light stationary in the sky, orange in color. Changed direction, moving southwest in a straight line. Flashed brilliant white light in the process, then back to orange before taking off to the distant unseen sky, California. I thought it was the moon, but it was on the western horizon too early in the evening. Huge low crescent shape faded before my eyes in under 5 minutes. Toronto, Ontario. 2 groups of 5 orange lights slowly moving across Route 309, Quakertown, Pennsylvania. So go on MUFON, they got the thing there where you can see the last 20 sightings. So then I just, out of curiosity, I said it allows you to tailor your search. So I typed in cigar-shaped UFOs. I just did a query. I wondered, you know, on the MUFON site. And boom! 11:23. Heard sound, this is 2014, of a jet. Woke up at 2:57 in the morning, a.m. Looked out window, the east, and saw an object flying east and hovering over the electrical plant. The lights lit up bright at the plant. Moscow, Indiana. Silver, shiny, cigar-shaped object in the sky, Flintville, Tennessee. Long, large, cigar-shaped craft hovering over the ocean. No airplanes anywhere despite proximity to LAX. Marina del Rey, California. The object was solid, glowing white, cigar-shaped, heading north. I took a picture with the corner of the apartment as a reference, Dallas, Texas. Cigar-shaped vessel, close encounter, brilliantly lit, rooftop hovering, Philadelphia, PA. This is on the MUFON site. Are all these people lying? Are all those books I just went over with you lying? The book we're doing the review on, with all these professionals, are they lying? This is 1964 edition. This gold wasn't imagination. Van Daniken going down to the caves in Ecuador. Brugger, sorry about his name mistake there, who was killed in a city street in Brazil, lived with the Acacor Indians. They told him the history of the world, including the 2,000 Germans who went there during World War II and lived with them, in huge underground cities. And the ancient religious story was aliens from outer space came and rescued them and helped them twice, 6,000 years ago and 12,000 years ago, when we had planetary catastrophes, some kind of upheaval that causes mountains and rivers and oceans to change shape. So there you have it. Let's see one more tour here. Yellowish green cigar-shaped UFO with round portals with human-shaped being in each portal. I could not make out the features, just shapes. Buffalo, New York. 2 massive stars way up in the space, silently moving in a circular pattern over our heads as we observed them with binoculars. Carlsbad, California. There's 3 pages of these cigar-shaped things here. You can go on the MUFON site. Check this out for yourself. I'll read some from the last 3rd page here and be done. Cigar-shaped craft on 9/6. So that'll be September 2014. Cigar-shaped craft in straight line-like direction, New Hyde Park, New York. Extremely fast speed and just disappeared before it got in front of the moon. No clouds were around. Cedar Park, Texas. While walking with my father, we noticed this object hovering above the city, San Francisco, California. Light beaming on the buildings, Brooklyn, New York. Witnessed 3 separate lights in line center, one more oblong, solid object traveling in southerly direction, New Valley Stream, New York. Came out to talk, non-verbal. Hurricane Mills, Tennessee. My neighbor and I were outside, waiting outside in the eastern northwest, in the northern hemisphere, celestial hemisphere. We noticed a pulsating, vertical, cigar-shaped object, Syracuse, New York. Well, there does seem to be a lot of stuff going on. And I'm just trying to nail it down. What is going on? Who are the culprits causing all this chaos and mayhem and anarchy on Earth? From Ferguson to the continued economic destruction in the United States, to the insidious sky spraying in the United States. I've been doing this on my sky spraying videos, a little bit on each video of this document. Document reveals goal of engineered climate modification in 1966. So Kennedy was killed in 63, we went to the moon in 69, so they say, but in 66 they were created the national security agencies and were secretly behind the scenes, started up this huge engineering project to change the weather, to warm the weather, to warm the poles, and then in 66 they changed their minds and started blaming humans for the weather getting warmer when they were changing it to get warmer. And the government behind the scenes, as everybody knows, all the governments of the world, had exploded more than 4,000 nuclear bombs, 50% of them probably underground, 35–40% in the water, the oceans, and 5% or so probably in our atmosphere. Destroying planet Earth, in my opinion, while aliens are flying around. And who's in control of the planet? All the presidents are Masons. All the banksters, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, Morgans, and Chases are Luciferian Illuminati with devil worship, even having satanic sexual abusing children and people. Ceremonies, like if you go to church and you pray, that's a religious ceremony. Service, you call religious service, but these satanic people were having religious services. Witchcraft, occultic, Kabbalah. These people, Illuminati. And they have all the power. They knew all about the aliens. They know all about the sky spraying. Greenspan, Alan Greenspan, said before Congress, look it up. Creative economic destruction, Alan Greenspan. Look up just those words. They're doing that on purpose in the United States because they want to bring around to the United States communism. And communism is basically a commune, or just think of it as cattle in a corral, or people with microchips. They wanted these entities, I guess if they're out there, that this guy is calling forth in the desert. That built all the underground cities in Ecuador and all the underground cities we have in the United States. Since Kennedy was president and representative and senator, they've been building all these underground cities. These guys are in charge of all the money. They're Masons, Freemasons, Illuminati, Zionism, banksters, occultists, Hollywood, the Vatican that's controlled by the Jesuits. It's the military arm of the church. And the sky spraying going on. I hope I didn't blow you away with all that. But that's my story. I'm sticking to it. That's what the research shows me. And I didn't put the owl on the dollar bill. I don't attend the Bohemian Grove in a long robe with gay men shipped in and then chanting and screaming with a big burning fire and an owl and throw a child in there. I didn't put the rays behind the eye on the pyramid. That 1,000-year-old gold statues in Ecuador reveal, with the wings on the top, and the aliens on the gold statue that look like the Greys right here. That's one of the artifacts made out of gold. Looks like a spaceship. Can you see it? Looks like a spaceship. So the natives imitated what they had seen, and that looks like a flying saucer. My opinion. Anyways, thank you for watching my videos. And we've got some more exciting books that I've read, videos I will make. And to try to get people to wake up so that we don't have to be victims of whatever these people who built all these underground cities and who are sky spraying us every day with chemicals. Weather warfare, they call it. And who did cover-ups and reverse engineered all the stuff they found on the aircraft in Roswell. As Philip Corso said in this book. And we know that in the 1969, 1970, right after we supposedly went to the moon, they're publishing books about too many people on the planet. They're calling it a bomb. That's urgent. They're sky spraying outside. That should concern anybody. They're sky spraying right outside your house. Go outside and look. These people are in charge. They think there's too many people. They're building underground cities. The gold of the gods. And they're getting gold. They got buy gold signs on the corners of every city throughout the United States that I've seen. So why do they want the gold so bad? The population bomb. 1983, 84, football fields, aircraft seen all over Hudson Valley, western Massachusetts, northern New York, Connecticut. Cops, city halls, emptying the building, going outside, they tell them, come outside and look. Football field, triangular-shaped UFO floating out there, hovering, and then zooms away. Meanwhile, report from Iron Mountain. Please go look this book up. You can get a copy on the internet for free. Just download it and read it. But disarmament and the economy. Disarmament scenarios. War and peace as social systems. What they were worried about in 1969, 1967. 2 years before we went to the moon. Oh my God. They were worried if there was no more wars, because we have nuclear weapons now, there wouldn't be any more wars. That there would be no reason for the people to put up with the politicians lying and controlling and deceiving and robbing them. So they said in this book, you can see that I read all the tabs here. I read it all. And it's very specific. They had to create environmental issues, terrorism issues. I'll just read this one paragraph. It is true that the rate of pollution could be increased selectively for that purpose. In fact, a mere modification of existing programs for the deterrence of pollution could speed up the process enough to make the threat credible and much sooner. So they artificially said that we're having a pollution problem, but that they also have to spend billions of dollars ahead to create the pollution problem. Credibility, in fact, lies at the heart of the problem of developing a political substitute for war. Page 66. What a thing to say. Get the report. So what I'm trying to say is, in this book, Report from Iron Mountain, and you just saw what it just said there, credibility, in fact, lies at the heart of the problem of developing a political substitute for war. That would be Al-Qaeda. That would be ISIS. That would be 911. That would be the Middle East. That would be the Muslims. That would be the immigration issue. That would be sky spraying. That would be global warming, global cooling, and on Wednesdays, climate change. They had to come up with scary things to scare people to allow them to be the police to solve those problems that were non-existent that they created to keep people in line in the event peace broke out. That's what it says in this book. Thank you for watching my videos. It's certainly concerning, some of this stuff. But I think awareness is probably the key to the solution. Knowing that we're spiritual beings, knowing that they even, the Luciferians, are sacrificing children, sexually abusing them, murdering them, so they can get favors or communication with the demonic beings. The same thing with King Solomon's temple that they're trying to rebuild over there in Jerusalem, all controlled by these guys. There's your King Solomon's temple that's always in these books. I've done videos on these, and they even call it the New Age. Look, it says right there, New Age. This is a Freemasonic book. The Supreme Council, 33-degree, ancient and accepted Scottish rite of the Freemasonry Southern Jurisdiction, United States of America, 1733 17th Street, Northwest, Washington, D.C. Right there. So just consider, who are these people? Look at the Egyptian hieroglyphics on the bottom here. And remember, they are trying to get Christianity and Christ Jesus out of the churches. And if you don't believe me, read right here. Number 5. Pause this and read it if you don't believe me. The entire separation of church and state and opposition to every attempt to appropriate public monies, federal, state, or local, directly or indirectly, for the support of the sectarian and private institution. So they want to get Christianity out, it's in this paragraph right here, of the schools, but they're also at the same time bringing us the Luciferian religion. So it's not really separating church and state. It's separating Jesus's or other good religion people, Ten Commandment type religion and state, and reintroducing a new religion, which is the New World Order, where people get microchips of gay agenda, homosexuality, sacrificing people, returning maybe to the way of the ancients of sacrificing people on the altars. Is this what they want? Is this possible? The evidence seems to show us that they'll kill presidents to shut people up. And Kennedy would have known all this. Look at the timing that we've examined over and over of his presidency in the House of Representatives for all those years, then the Senate for 7 years, and then the president for a couple of years before they killed him. Thank you for watching my videos. May God help us all. This seems a little insane. You think?